Hi, welcome to Smokin with Swami. I'm Swami Chaitanya.
And I'm Nikki, and today we are going to South India.
And Tipu the Wonder Dog. We're still smoking this
Actually,
roast.
it's very appropriate for Tipu to be coming on this little journey with us because his name is Tipu Sultan, and he's named after a great and noble ruler, a sultan, who had a sultanate in South India.
In Karnataka.
In the last days of the Raj. And he is the only one in all of India that did not give in to the British. He held on to his sultanate.
Well, no, Shivaji I don't think did. Shivaji
well,
around Bombay.
That's
true, a little
maybe.
history we don't know
But
exactly.
Anyway, Tipu was very brave and noble.
Yeah, until he was betrayed. And that's the only reason they lost.
So anyway,
Karnataka,
that was in
we were in Goa, and Goa is right next to Karnataka.
Right.
So these friends of ours, Win and Sally, told us about this tiny little temple town just down a couple hours south of Karnataka coast, up into the Ghats a little bit. And there was a beautiful little temple town. And so we planned out this whole trip, and I figured I got out the railroad books and the maps and all these things, and plotting this whole thing. Oh, we'll spend 3 days in Kolor, and we'll spend 4 days here and 2 days there, and we'll go this, we'll go. Huge, like almost a 3-week itinerary or more, right? So we get to Kolor, and all this magic happened, and it's just down the coast from Goa, but it's
about 8 hours or 6 hours.
Yeah, by the time you really get there.
Yeah.
But it's this tiny little town, and the only reason the town exists is because of the temple. And we discovered this town, and we were going to stay like 3 days, and it turned out to be 3 weeks. We were just sort of so magnetized this place.
Beautiful.
But now, is everyone going to go there now?
No, because we're not saying the name correctly. You'll never know.
You'll never know the name. But that's where we encountered our goddess.
Let's call it something like Magpie.
I already said the name.
No, but no one caught that.
Okay. Anyway, so this is the goddess Mukambika, who is a goddess of India, who is one of the great forms, and it represents both Kali and Lakshmi and Saraswati. And in fact, Mahakali, Mahalakshmi, Mahasaraswati, Aika Swarupini, she is Sri Mukambika. And she is this gorgeous woman, 20 years old, absolutely spectacular, and she is the supreme of womanhood in beauty, in creativity, in imagination, and in spirituality. And that is how she has inspired all of us, and she is what is...
well, anyway, getting back to this little village in the
I get crazy over
beautiful edge of the Western Ghats. And so that was just one of the many places. We basically just wanted to share a little bit about when we would take these little trips.
We went to this place called Sravana which is this 100 feet high statue of one of the great Jain saints, Tirthankar. And it's this giant block of granite that's, what is it, over 100 feet high.
Why does that come to your mind? That's a really funny one.
That's an interesting one, because they poured kumkum over the whole thing.
Places we went,
right.
That's funny.
Oh, but then there was Belur and Halabid. Those are other little temple towns where there's amazing temples that are carved. Every square inch of these temples is carved in the rock with stories of gods and goddesses and elephants.
And this is actually just what the local Indian people do with their spare time, if they have any, as well. They work so hard, and they might save up a family for years and years to take the whole family on yatra. And yatra, that's the Sanskrit word for pilgrimage. And they might go all the way from South India to North India for a Kumbh Mela or something.
Go from temple to temple.
Circumambulate.
So we kind of did the same thing over there.
So we were doing that. We did yatra for years.
Right.
And at that point, Swami was a photographer. He was taking tons of photographs. And it was actually... for me anyway, as much as the photographs, it was an excuse to go out to these remote little villages you'd never go to otherwise and say, oh, look, this place has some bizarre little temple, let's go there.
No, but remember the yatra we did outside of Bombay, near Pune, which is called the Ashtavinayaka, the 8 temples dedicated to Ganesha, the elephant-headed god.
This guy.
And it took us over 3.5 days to visit each one of these 8 temples, and they were only like 50 or 100 miles apart, right?
Yeah, but those 50 or 100 miles might have taken hours because the roads were really bad.
And then we'd have to walk 2 or 3 miles to get to this tiny little temple. And it wouldn't even be a real statue of Ganesh, right? It'd be some rock that someone had painted orange, and you say, oh, wow, that rock looks just like Ganesha. And boom, lo and behold, they build a temple. So there are 8 of these. They call it 8 Ganesh temples. Vinayaka is he who helps you overcome obstacles. So when you visit all 8 of these, you get a special blessing from Ganapati. And of course, Why did I think of Ganapati? That's Ashtavinayaka. He's our Ganapati right over here who's protecting us. And he's the guardian of our gate as well.
So a really good way to see India is to just go temple hopping.
Yeah.
But just not only the main ones, you know, I mean, just
little ones off.
Little villages. Every village has a few.
Yeah.
And every little roadside has a small little niche with an altar in it or something.
So this was all
really
the Karnataka
wonderful.
Side, the Maharashtra side. And then later on, we went all the way to on the other side, over near Madras.
Yeah, we've spent years over there now in Tamil Nadu.
So the big temple we would always go to outside of Madras is south of there, and it's called
Chidambaram.
Chidambaram. And Chidambaram is the home of the great Lord Shiva as Lord of the Dance, Shiva
That's
Nataraj,
the dancing Shiva?
where he's dancing like this
Inside
and
the ring of
swirling
fire.
around and so on. And they have a big dance festival there every year at Shivaratri. And it's like 24 hours worth of dance, day and night, all day long. And from beginners, student shows to the most professional.
But let's tell what happened when we first went there. The reason this became such a close place to us is, again, it was just a stop on doing yatra, going to the element temples, the 5 element temples in Tamil Nadu. And we got to Chidambaram and wandering around, and there's this little, you know, it's acres and acres place. I can't remember exactly,
like
but it's
25
huge.
acres.
Yeah, this temple grounds.
Oh, it's temples.
And within it are lots of smaller temples as well as the one giant one. And there's this one smaller little thing, and inside there's 9 lingams for the planets, right? Is that right? And the sun was in the middle? Is that how it was?
Right.
And they were all giant lingams. And there is a temple priest there, and they all have their heads shaved in a certain way. It's shaved on the side and the big top knot on the rear.
Dikshitar is the name of the
family.
Family, right.
And this priest is there, and he's doing some sort of puja. And at a certain point, he comes over, and through our translator, that we had someone there who could translate from Tamil, he said that this was the astrology temple. It was dedicated to the planets. And what was my birth time? And he would go home and look it up in his book and come back the next day, and he'll tell you what your birth star is in the Vedic tradition of South India astrology.
Which is called Jyotish.
So I tell him through the astrologer that I'm born. Now everybody's going to know my age, but whatever. All right, through this translator. I'm February 1st, 1955. So he takes it home.
No,
he doesn't take it home. That was good, that last hit, yeah. Okay, he doesn't take it home. But he looks at me and he just says, "Oh, you're Anusham, your birth star." And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, come on, you're ripping me off. Don't you have to go home and look it up in your big book?" And it ends up, he says, "I'm born the exact same day." So we immediately became brother-sister. And Swami brother by default, right? And so, brother-in-law,
right?
And and immediately after the ceremony took us back down these little twisty alleys behind the temple,
right.
where the priests who are not rich. I mean, these priests live
very,
very humble lifestyles.
Brahmin quarter, right?
Very humble. These little tiny alleys, these small tiny little houses built in these. I don't know what they were made out of.
And his
wife, and his grandmother, and his children, and
not his grandmother.
His mother.
And his father.
His father
was still alive. And the boy was like 13 or 14.
And now that boy is like 30-something.
Yeah, and now he's like 6'2".
Yeah, he's almost 40 and he's huge.
So that was Tangasapapati Dikshitar.
But that boy, interestingly, at 13, we met his wife. You might be surprised.
Wife-to-be.
It was a wife-to-be. Basically, when she would reach puberty, they would consummate. But until then, it was the priest family down the block, and it was the perfect match astrologically and everything else. And it's true, they're still married. They have lots of children now.
But the other thing is that he was trained to be a priest, and one of the rules for that particular order is he had to be married in order to do certain rituals and enter into certain parts of the temple.
And she likewise was able to train to be his wife and the mother of his children, and even more importantly, daughter-in-law of his mother. Because his mother was able, remember, she would come every day, even as a young girl, like at 11 or something she was. And the mother of the boy would start teaching her how she cooked and things. So that by the time they got married and she moved in with the son and the mother-in-law and father-in-law, she fit right into the family.
So then one time we're there just on Nikki's birthday, February 1st.
And his birthday.
And the priest's birthday. And so we go to their house for a dinner, and the mother, his wife, comes out with this beautiful sari and says, "This is for you, for your birthday." And not only that, but she wraps Nikki in the sari, and she says, "Well, this is a special wrap for Brahmin women only, right?" And so that's one of the ways they know about caste in India. How do you wrap your sari? It tells everyone that, oh, you're Brahmin and so on. And so the kind of sari is telling all kind of information to various people. But that was totally flattering and totally honoring that you would become...
But the best part was when she was wrapping me in the sari. And she takes me to this rickety little staircase, you know. You go upstairs. I mean, the house is built like out of cardboard, really.
Oh.
And it was very rickety. You didn't go upstairs. Ooh.
Really?
And it was this tiny little room where she and her husband, and probably they all slept, I don't know. And we're standing there, and it's kind of dark. It was at dusk. And she's wrapping me in this sari. And as she does it, this really huge, nasty-looking scorpion starts walking across the floor. And I'm wondering, what's she going to do? This woman's obviously a very good, you know, Hindu, Brahmin, vegetarian, ahimsa, non-harmful, right. What's she going to do? She had a baby downstairs. She didn't think twice. She stamped that thing right out. So there you go. Sometimes karma just takes that.
But she did it without anger, you know. She just
totally.
Did it.
She just did it. Had to be
done.
Just had to be.
What needed to be done.
And then she wrapped me in the sari. Anyway, so there's a little digression. It's fun.
But that's a great, beautiful temple, and it's just a very inspirational thing. And it's one of the very few temples. I think it's the only temple where you can stand in one place, and out of one eye you can see Shiv Nataraj, and out of the other side you can see Sheshanag Vishnu sleeping on the snake as you look, and it's a very unique place that one temple honoring both Shiva and Vishnu.
It's also, I think, one of the very, very few temples in India still that the government does not run.
It's privately run,
and so they have to raise their own money, and hence the priests are very poor. Yeah. But it's worth it because they don't want to be told what to do.
Yeah,
so
and I received a mantra initiation from him for Sri Vidya as well many years later and so on. So they're very dear to us, these people. And all right, so South India, but see
and the flowers, you know, that just makes me think about, so when you go to temple in India, and you're walking down, you know, these crowded streets, and there's rickshaws and everything, and then there's those carts, and they're selling the flowers and the
But fruits, as you're walking down, you see this giant gateway, which is like huge. 30 stories high or something like that, with carvings all over and painted. And down below with all these flower stalls selling incense, and that's where you also put your shoes, right? And you give somebody a little rupee to take care of.
And the flowers smell so good, especially for evening.
So that's what you do. You get a plate, and you take some flowers and some incense and some rice, and you make an offering.
And you put it in your hair. All the women wear the flowers in their hair in South India.
Right. So that temple is it was built 1,000 years ago, the Chidambaram temple, and some of them, a magnificent sculpture on that temple all over the place.
So hence this icon addiction.
Right.
It's like, I've kind of suffered from it since I was a small child. I was raised Catholic, and I didn't have dolls. I had statues that I played with of saints and stuff. Right. And then it just kept developing in our travels. Someday we'll take you soon on a tour of the property, maybe, and show you just some of the really large statues. It's gotten now into the 1-ton size.
Granite statues.
Granite statues.
They don't weigh a ton.
Some of them do.
No, they all weigh less than a ton.
One of them's almost.
Anyway, so Nikki mentioned about the 5 Elements tour, pilgrimage of South India, and that's so Chidambaram is actually the last one on the list, actually, because the 5 elements for Hindu philosophy are earth, water, air or fire, air, and akash or space, right? So Chidambaram happens to be the one for space, so it's the most abstract. And you remember they have this giant tank, which is like a lake, right in the middle of the temple, and it's very spacey there. But they say it's somehow connected to the Ganges River, right?
Oh, it always is.
Right. But anyway, so the 5 different temples, they start out in Kanchipuram, which is the Earth Temple, and that's also where the Shankaracharya has a major pitam in south of Madras, Kanchipuram. And then the second one is that's Earth, and then Water Temple is Tiruchirappalli.
Oh, right.
That's a major rail hub, but it's in the south, and that's where in the Water Temple, every year when the Kaveri River floods in monsoon, the lingam actually goes underwater, right? And then the next one is the fire one, that's Arunachala, and that's where...
they throw the fire off the mountain every year.
They have a fire ceremony, and you walk around the mountain, and we've done that, and that's where Sri Ramana Maharshi, or Maharishi, has his ashram and headquarters and been very influential. And then the next one is Sri Kalahasti, that's the air temple, and that's actually up in the next state north of Madras, and we've been up there too, and that's a really windy kind of spacey place.
But that's a wonderful tour, really. You know,
to do those 5,
we often
those
tell
5,
people,
5
Gonna go to South India. That alone, that's just a perfect trip right there.
Right.
To do that.
So you have earth, water, fire, air, and then end up where we started actually in Chidambaram, which is the space one.
But everything in between, because you're gonna drive from here to you'll be renting one car and driver is best
we
way.
would rent a.
You can take buses. You can do that if you have more time. But and
we would always have a car and driver with ambassador car driver. So cheap, like $10 a day or something like that.
And then you can just really stop along the way anywhere you want. These little roadside stands where you can get delicious food out of big pots and masala dosa and all that.
And tender coconuts. You drive by the road and they have this pile of green coconuts sitting there, and you kind of stop and the woman will come out with a machete and chick, chop off the top of that coconut and give you a straw. And this is the safest, best, most blessed drink in all of India. You know it's pure. It's in a coconut. And so, remember those things? Oh,
no, but I do remember sitting in the back of those ambassador cars with the driver.
And we'd have a little pipe.
We would actually, what we would do, because the cannabis they grow and the flowers are no good. You don't really want to smoke the flowers in India. You make hash out of it. However, if you have some of these kind of bad flowers, you can cook with them. Remember, and that's
Nikki
what we would do. I'd make maju, these little edibles, and you get in the back of one of these trucks, and you kind of don't really want to be fully aware of all the traffic around you sometimes. It's scary, and so you just space out and look at the beautiful scenery.
But we'd also smoke our little pipe in the back, too. Because, see, everybody in India smokes hashish, or charas, as they call it, with tobacco. And most people smoke it either in a rolled joint or spliff and with a filter, or they'd smoke it in a chillum, right? But we were always just smoking pure.
Wait, you're talking about foreigners?
Foreigners, yes, but the local people, they would smoke chillums too with tobacco. Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we would always smoke pure, and that's what we still do, smoking pure. So
South India is really wonderful. It's very special. Most people go to the north first because of the Taj Mahal and all this, but really,
but then that very southern tip,
to go south.
The southern tip of India, there's two things, and the very, very, very southern tip is Kanyakumari, right? And that is where the Indian Ocean and the Arabian Sea meet, and it's kind of really pretty wild place. And there's a temple there to the Virgin who's expecting to marry Shiva, but he never shows up for some reason. The Kanyakumari, she is just the ever expectant bride to be, and she's the southern tip. And then a little further up the coast of the Bay of Bengal is the stepping stones to Sri Lanka, and that's Rameswaram.
Right.
And you've been to Rameswaram, but I went to separately, right? Or did we go together with the...
Maybe once we did.
Yeah. Oh, that's the place. This temple's right on the edge of the water, the salt water. And first you take a bath at the beach. And the great thing about that temple in Rameswaram, it's dedicated to Shiva in honor of Rama, right? And so what you do there is the priest then give you a bath in I think it was like 11 different wells.
Yeah, they throw water on you. Right?
It's like an amusement park where you go through and everybody gets doused with water from these 11 different spring wells, and it's a purification process at this part, and it's just across from Sri Lanka. And so when Rama was coming back from Sri Lanka with Sita, the first thing he did is he got on land and did puja at Rameswaram. Right. So it was how Rama, an incarnation of Vishnu, was paying homage to Shiva, because Shiva and Vishnu, they each worship each other.
You getting this?
All right, we
could talk about India forever, as you can tell. Almost as much as we can talk about cannabis, actually.
And they do kind of go together.
Those are two of our favorite subjects.
Right, well, that's probably enough for now. We're going to have another puff on this little pipe.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for joining Smokin with Swami. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya.